We're going to call this meeting to order. And at this point, we're going to have our invocation by Reverend Victoria Thomas from the Agape Hampton Road Spiritual Center. It looks like Reverend Jones will be participating in the invocation.
All right. Let's bow our heads, folks, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we know that you're always near us and beside us in all that we do. We ask that you be with us this evening as we consider the affairs of this, our great city. Bless this group as we make the decisions that we need to make. And when we leave here this evening, may we take your love and fellowship with us. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. And the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Your Honor. All present, including Mr. Berlucci, who's ill.
Oh. All righty. At this point, we're going to ask for the certification of the closed session. Do I have
Second.
a motion and a second?
Mr. Tower, may I have your vote? Thank you. By a vote of 9-0, you certify the closed session to be in accordance with a motion to recess.
Okay, at this point, I guess consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, move for approval under the consent agenda under Ordinances and Resolutions. Item G1, ordinance to terminate memorandum of understanding with the City of Chesapeake, Ray Southeastern Parkway and Greenbelt Project. Item 2, resolution to request the Circuit Court appoint an alternate to Ray Board of Equalization. Item 4, resolution to approve the modification of a construction contract, Ray Francis Land House Restoration.
Okay, you've opened a public hearing on planning.
On planning, item 2, Southland Haven LLC for modification of conditions, Ray allow the vacation of easements to construct office use at 877 Southland Haven Road in the Rose Hall District, noting that I am abstaining on that item. Item 3, Thin Brew Line Brewing Company, Oceana Crossings LLC for modification of conditions, Ray Craft Brewery and Open Air Market at 1375 Oceana Boulevard in the Beach District. Item 4, Gatherton Construction and Development Incorporated, the Open Door Chapel Incorporated for modification of conditions, Ray Religious Use at 3177 Virginia Beach Boulevard in the Beach District. Item 6, John's Garage LLC, 5772 Arrowhead LLC for conditional use permit, Ray Automotive Repair Garage at 5772 Arrowhead Drive, Suites A and B in the Kempsville District. Item 7, 3323 Shore Drive LLC for conditional use permit, Ray Commercial Marina at 3323 Shore Drive, Lynn Haven District. Item 8, Green Clean Auto Wash conditional use permit, Ray Car Wash Facility at 3112 Virginia Beach Boulevard in the Lynn Haven District. Item 9, Marie Strom Aloha LLC conditional use permit, Ray Tattoo Parlor at 615 North Bird Neck Road, Suite 108 in the Beach District. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any comments? We're open for a vote.
By a vote of 9-0, you approve the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wood, noting Vice Mayor Wood's abstention.
Got it. Okay, now with ordinances and resolutions, we will hear any speakers on the resolution to direct the filing for the request for a referendum on the question of issuing $567,500 in general obligation debt floored mitigation measures.
The first speaker that signed up is Barbara Messner, but I don't see her in the audience. The next speaker is Diana Howard. Ms. Howard is participating via WebEx. Ms. Howard, if you'll pause 2 to 3 seconds before beginning your comments. Thank you.
Okay, hopefully I'm unmuted. Okay, so my name is Diana Howard, and I'm the chair of the Virginia Beach Tea Party. And I remember way back when we defeated light rail, we tried to get city council to take the taxes that we were paying for light rail and put them towards stormwater projects. And only 1 cent of that went there. So now I have to wonder why, I don't wonder why. I'm sure that all of these projects are necessary. Some of them are new, some of them are old, and they haven't been done yet. And we should be putting a referendum in, because that's what you should do when you want to go into debt for that much money, but you've never done it for, as far as I know, for things like the sports center or entertainment venues. But, so I have questions. How much of these projects are going to get done in what amount of time? I remember meeting with a couple of city council members and with Phil Davenport from Public Works and everything, and he told me, Diana, if you gave me all that money, I would not be able to complete these projects within 15 years. I would not be able to do it. There are regulatory things we have to go through, environmental things we have to go through, and we do not have the manpower. And even though we're the project management of these projects, we could not get it done in 15 years. So please tell me, I would like to know how much you're going to increase my taxes to do these projects. How long is it going to take to do these projects? And what is the order in which you were going to do these projects? Because some have been waiting longer than others. Thank you.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay, all the speakers. Okay, at this point, do we have a motion?
I would move its approval, and I think anyone knows my reputation as a fiscal conservative is probably not very questionable. But these are just fact of life things that we have to do. We do plan to complete these projects in probably a 10 to 12 year period. I would agree with the statement that people made in the past that the approach that would have been the status quo under our prior city leadership would have not been able to have been accomplished. But if Elon Musk can make a new fuselage and a new spacecraft and get it all launched in less than 10 years, I know we can do civil engineering projects that are the Romans did in a like amount of time. So I think it's a question of our management structure and our leadership that we have, and these are in fact doable projects in the time frame that will make a difference. It will cost some money. I don't take exception that we haven't used referendums as much as we could have. Other past projects, maybe because they didn't have broad-based support like this project does. But I remind you, the last time we did a big civil project of equal significance was for the Lake Gaston pipeline, which was $200 million. Louis and Barbara, we were here when that was done. And in today's dollars, that would be about $450 million. So in nominal terms, this isn't, I know it's a big number. It's not as big as it looks when you put it in comparison with Lake Gaston. We needed water, and now we need protection from our homes from flooding, our highways from flooding, and also to attract business. But this will be a choice the public will get to decide, and we will go into not persuasion, but we are going to go forward with a very good factual implications so the public can understand the risk, the phasing of the projects, and the cost. But this is, I think, our obligation to tell the public, if you don't want your home to flood, you want to make sure the roads are passable to get to work, to get an ambulance to your home, this is the path ahead to get us there. And I hope the public, as they keep an open mind and look at the material, will see that we presented a very competent and prudent approach, and will join us in supporting and make sure that our community is safe in the future as it is today, and we never have to experience another flooding like Matthew or a worse storm, God forbid. So with that, I move for its adoption.
Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second from Mr. Jones and Ms. Wilson. Okay, any other discussion by council members? The vote is open. Ms.
I just
Wilson.
want to say that with our current funds, we put a significant part of our budget, as much as we really could stretch, to the stormwater projects. And I think it's like 37% of our total budget is
Like $300-something million of the CIP.
goes into this. But to get all of the projects done, it's just not enough. It's going to be more money needed. So it's going to be, obviously, we're going to the public to see if that's what their will is. But we are already putting a significant amount of their tax dollars into stormwater.
Anybody else? You know, once again, I concur with Mr. Moss and Ms. Wilson. This is to help expedite things. And, you know, once again, this is like an insurance policy. We have it, and we hope we'll never have to use it. But once again, you know, the timing on this is right. Ms. Henley, I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead, but I think in response to some of the earlier concerns that if we had had the money, we wouldn't have been able to spend it. But we have spent these last 4 years in developing the science and the modeling and the design to some extent, certainly not completely designing these projects, but an awful lot of the background information that we just didn't have before. But we have been spending this time getting ready to be able to do these projects. And so I think now we do have that information and the modeling and the preliminary design and so forth, so that I think the timing is right to move forward with actually constructing, because some of these, have been on that list that we've been passing around for 4 years, but that background information in the interim is what's been done, and so now we're ready to go forward.
Yeah. And thank you, Ms. Henley. Once again, we got the results of the Dewberry study, and there's new innovations in technology. And the other thing is to be assured, Ms. Howard, that there will be a sense of assigning priorities, and I'm sure that all the projects are going to be done based on how the priority is assessed. That will be to the best advantage. Okay, that being said, the vote is open.
By a vote of 9-0, you approve the resolution.
Okay, great, thank you. And thank all of council for their hard work and diligence on this one. Okay, now we're going to open up on planning, and item number 1, Dobes LLC for a special exemption to alternative compliance Ray Crepe Brewery, tasting room, and restaurant at 821, 823, and 825 Virginia Beach Boulevard, District 6 Beach.
Eddie Verdon for the applicant.
Hey, Eddie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Madam Clerk. For the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Attorney representing DOZB LLC and the DeRoche family. This is an assemblage of 3 properties on the east side of Virginia Beach Boulevard, 17th Street, very close, just west of the Vibe District, and frankly, I expect the Vibe District will move this in this direction. The property is directly across the street on the south side of the boulevard from the 2nd Precinct. However, just to the west, adjacent to the precinct, is parking for the pavilion and for the sports center. There's literally a sea of parking on the opposite side of Virginia Beach Boulevard, 17th Street, extending west and almost to Bird Neck Road when you get over a block further to the north. The proposal is to create a very unique, primarily outdoor setting for this craft brewery and small restaurant. And I compare it somewhat to the Shack. It's not the same, but it's a similar concept. The RAC has reviewed this. They loved it, as did the Planning Commission and as your staff. There's been no opposition to it. I understand that there was some concern about parking. There are 9 parking spaces provided on site. To provide more would basically just, require paving the property. But most importantly, as a resident for the last almost 30 years of Croatan, and the folks in Shadow Lawn and Central Beach, and frankly all the way to North End, today you ride your bike. They'll probably have 30, 40, 50 bikes parked here, just as is a similar situation with the folks a little bit further to the east in the resort. And there's also Lyft and there's Uber. People don't drink and drive, thank the Lord for that, with any regularity. There's still some people that do. But the idea of paving a parking lot when we have a literal sea of parking across the street. In fact, I understand there's some discussion about creating a traffic circulation with Lyft or whatever that will remove even more parking along Atlantic and Pacific, and have people using all this sea of parking to go to the ocean front who come from further away and can't walk or ride a bike. But we certainly, especially with the sports center and the pavilion for that matter in the future, I think it will become busier. There'll be people that'll walk over from there as well. So we don't believe that there will be a problem with parking in in this location whatsoever, but, and that's what the recommendation is. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Burdon? Okay, thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
The only other speaker we had signed up was Barbara Messner. I don't see her in the audience.
Okay, any comments from council members?
I
Mr.
have
Moss?
questions for staff, and I'm the one that raised the questions about parking, only because I watched the planning commission, and it was very difficult to follow the math that they used. But if you look under parking, it's on page 2 in the background summary of the proposals. It makes the reference that the Vibe District is 0.2 miles away, which is a quarter mile, which is our normal walking distance. That all makes sense. And it then talks about ample parking, but it never defines what the parking requirement that the Vibe District itself generates, how much of that parking is satisfied by Vibe properties, how much is satisfied by on-street parking, but you make a judgment that there's ample parking. So I'm just trying to and it wasn't well explained in the planning commission discussion either. So what is the definition of ample parking, and what is the parameters that you use to come to that conclusion?
Councilmember Moss, as staff did the analysis, the request is to essentially reduce the parking requirement from 21 spaces to 9 through the alternative compliance. There is, according to staff analysis, as we've looked at it, there is this discusses about on-street parking being potentially available, and we also compared it to similar uses that have a similar kind of operation that already exists and how they've operated and have limited parking as well. So
Let me come back to my question, is what is the parking requirement that the Vibe District properties generate? How much of that requirement is organically met by the properties? And what is the number of what is the amount of on-street parking spaces such that we know what ample means? And that narrative, while interesting, didn't provide any quantitative numbers.
understand, we do not have the line by line for the uses and the parking of the existing Vibe District, sir.
Yeah, didn't have the planning commission either, and that's my point. We make conclusions, but there's no underlying empirical evidence that substantiates or shared with the public as to what's behind that definition. And so I know how I'm voting. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Hey, Mr. Tower.
Move the approval.
Second.
Moval and a motion and approve, second. Vote is open.
Mr. Jones, may I have your vote, please?
Push your button.
But I would ask that the city manager in the future have the staff provide the math that goes behind conclusions.
By a vote of 8-1, you've approved the application.
Okay, moving on to the next planning item 5, Beach Building Corp. Inc., David and Deborah McLaughlin, Kristen Worrell, change of zoning from R 7.5 residential district to conditional A18 apartment, grade construction of 8 condominium units at 2332 and 2328 Pleasure House Road, District 4, Bayside.
Mr. Burdon for the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wood, honorable members of council, again, for the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney, representing Beach Building Group, and the other individuals are the owners of these 3 pieces of property on which there are 2 single-family homes. Beach Building Group's principal is Mr. Jonathan Spate. He's an extremely accomplished young builder who's born and raised here in Virginia Beach, is doing very good work. This application involves this assemblage with 181 linear feet of frontage on the east side of Pleasure House Road, total of 25,249 square feet of property. The properties are surrounded to the north, the east, and the south by the soon-to-be redeveloped Windsong Apartments. This is a conditional rezoning request to A18, subject to a proffer agreement requiring development of 8 units, each with 3 bedrooms, 2,125 square feet of living area, and a 2-car garage. The development will be a condominium, and the units will be owner-occupied or overwhelmingly so. In addition, we have included a proffer mandating that the condominium declaration mandating that there will be no rentals of any units for periods of less than 30 days. Property has, as you can see, that this is the old Windsong Apartments around it, and the south side is now their second access. A24, or it's PDH2, A24, and A36. They will be providing, as a part of their approved plan, a landscape buffer and a fence on the east side and on the south side. We will be providing, on our proffered plan, a fence and landscape buffering on the north side. The dwelling on the north side is a part of the apartments, and it's where the, I believe the manager will reside, but I don't know that for certain. And then we're obviously providing landscaping along the front of the property as well. There will be 4 parking spaces per unit, including the 2 in the garages of each unit. The anticipated market value of these units will be between $500,000 and $570,000. The density of this proposal is only 13.79 units per acre, and the amount of lot coverage is only 42%. By contrast, the property that adjoins us on all 3 sides will have a density almost twice that, and a lot coverage that's far, far greater. I also would point out that directly across Pleasure House Road on the west side, there are 3 other condominiums, all zoned A18, with greater density and greater lot coverages. We provided our application to the Chesapeake Beach Civic League when we filed the application, and we provided updates through Mark Walker with the Civic League after we worked with the design subcommittee of the Bayfront Advisory Commission and city staff on some modifications to the elevations. And to our knowledge, they have, and I'm certain they have not opposed this in any way. My understanding is that they actually would have supported Windsong had Windsong had a density of 18 units per acre, and we're surrounded by it, and we're at 13.79 units per acre. The Bayfront Advisory Commission recommended this project without any dissent at all. The Planning Commission also unanimously recommended approval, and your city staff has recommended approval. We would respectfully ask the council to grant this conditional rezoning as proffered, and I would look forward to the opportunity to respond to the speaker or speakers who are
Any
signed up.
questions for Mr. Badon at this point? Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
The next speaker we have registered is Barbara Messner, who, again, I don't see. We have one speaker via WebEx, Kim Mayo. Ms. Mayo, if you would pause 2 to 3 seconds before beginning your comments, you are unmuted.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Mayo, owner at Chesapeake Beach East Condos, directly across the street. Chesapeake Beach Civic League do not endorse this. I'm speaking in opposition. It's only half an acre, and they want to cram 8 units and 16 parking spots on there. Changing zoning really poses a safety risk to others. Most condos nearby, including mine, were built in the 1980s, long before the population density we have now in 2021 on the Shore Drive corridor. Thank you to Councilman Moss, Wood, Jones, and Ms. Councilwoman Hensley. But the rest of council really blew it on Windsongs, and 2 wrongs do not make a right. Many have emailed council opposed to Beach Builders Group and this unwanted plan on Pleasure House Road. Comprehensive plan was unfortunately ignored on both Windsong and Westminster, resulting in a lawsuit against our great city and developers by abutters. The fact that these ever got approved is really troubling. Residents deserve to be respected, and the plan followed. And I also stand with Ocean Park against Marlin Bay Apartments. Concerns about Pleasure House Road echoed during the Windsong hearing are not minor. They include flooding. That area floods badly. The project puts lives in danger with increased traffic as a result of greater residential density. I've walked a baby stroller down Pleasure House Road, and it's dangerous. Too many close calls with pedestrians, people on bikes, and cars. We're concerned about the construction period with lots of noise, construction debris, bulldozers, and reduced air quality for this and Windsong. And it's a myth that residential development will bring in more taxes when the opposite is true. Lastly, Beach Building Group has just 4 reviews on Google, 1 in the past year, which is very negative, accomplished or not. Mr. Hayter entrusted Beach Building Group to build his home per his review. He was critical of their professionalism, punctuality, and responsiveness. Why then should they be trusted in Chicks Beach, given this experience? People have taken notice of your votes. Half the planning board showed up. Many council members are really servants of the developers. That should be on your business cards. First, I'd like to recognize Guy Tower with a bronze medal. He voted with a slick lawyer, developer, and against the people of Chicks Beach and Shore Drive on both Winsong and Westminster, both. Next, would Ms. Sabrina Wooten please come get her silver medal? Ms. Wooten was fixated on the 2% in favor of Winsong, ignoring the 98% of us against it, and voted against us on Winsong and Westminster. Finally, y'all join me in welcoming gold medal winner and servant of the developer of the year, Michael Berlucci. He ignored my correspondence on behalf of our 16-unit condominium across from Winsong, directly across, yet he stood in front of our Civic League when he wanted votes, then he turned his back. A politician for sure. I guess it's all about campaign contributions. So disgraceful. In conclusion, we ask that you reject this proposal.
That's all the speakers. Mr. Burdon, would you like for rebuttal?
Okay.
Sabrina and Guy got awards. I think you guys got medals.
Mayor, just to the one point that I think had some substance to it, these units will all be built simultaneously. This will be one 8-unit development, all built at the same time. It's not staggered, so it will be done rapidly and will be done a lot more quickly than the entire redevelopment of the Winsong property. I will point out that the speaker, Ms. Mayo, lives actually, because I have the declaration, the plats and the whole 9 yards, in an 18-unit condominium on 42,515 square feet. It's actually 18 and a fraction units per acre, not 13.79. The units are 1,280 square foot, 2-bedroom, over, under, one below, one above units that have a assessed value of $197,000 apiece. Higher density, less quality, no garages, directly across the street. And the point, and I didn't say that the Civic League endorsed anything. The Civic League isn't opposed to it because they specifically would have favored Winsong at 18 units per acre, and this is, again, 4+ units less per acre and surrounded by Winsong.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question.
Mr. Moss.
I don't want to get enough rebuttal of what she said, and I think we all were here for Winsong, so I think we all understand that. It was a very busy night, but I do recall it vividly. But as part of your, that's just advice. But are you contending with this application that the current property at R7.5, which is the status quo, is not economically in the marketplace today developable?
It is inconsistent with everything that is around it. And it's for the people who've owned these houses, the idea that they're stuck with 2 single-family homes surrounded by PDH2 and 6 units per acre. And this is to answer your question, is it worthless? Oh, no, I'm not going to say it's worthless. But is it consistent with the zoning both around it and directly to the south as well? There's additional multifamily and directly across the street.
So the answer is yes, it is.
Is it valueless?
No, I said it is developable and marketable at R7.5.
I'd say it's marketable way below what anything else would be at R7.5.
I'm just asking, is the existing zoning marketable? The answer is yes. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Vote is open.
Give us just a second to open it. Thank you.
All right, there we go.
It's open. Close it. By a vote of 8 to 1, you have approved the application.
Okay, now we're moving on to a tabled item, number 20 ordinances for short-term rentals, C, D, E, and F. Okay. All right, any speakers on this?
Speakers allowed?
Oh, no, that's right, there are no speakers. Okay, we are now open for discussion. Okay? Is there any discussion at all? Mr. Tower.
I'm concerned that we have so few people here that really, Mr. Berlucci's absence troubles me. I wonder if we should defer this till August when we have
No, I'm
a
not.
better half.
This is my honest thing, and once again, I'm concerned about, getting this right, because I still think that the public is divided, and I still think we're divided. And, my recommendation would be to defer this to September.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea.
Yes, Mr. Moss.
Well, I don't think we're going to be any wiser in September than we are today. If I knew that we were ending up where we're at and trying to kick the can down the road, and I don't think it's going to materially add to the quality decision, I certainly wouldn't have arrived back at Boy Scout camp at 3 o'clock in the morning last Tuesday, because I thought it was important to be here. We had a discussion. What is it that we don't know? I mean, I think the public is divided. More days on the calendar are not going to change the nature of the division in the community. I think we just have to decide on the merits, what's the best. That's why people put us here, to make those decisions and be accountable for them. And I don't see what are we going to learn in, now this is what, the 13th, so there's 31 days in July and another 31 days in August, and then there's Labor Day. And so what is it that we're learning or we're trying to resolve that over 6 years, and I guess we've had 3 extensive public discussions, what's new? I mean, what is the purpose of deferring? I realize Mr. Belushi is not here, but we're down another one, that's true. But what's new? What is it we are going to be researching? What is that unanswered question? What is it that we're going to do with all that time except allow more applications to come before us because we haven't decided and have to prove even more short-term rentals? I don't understand what's the purpose. And I'm sure the public is equally frustrated with us of our indecision. If you don't want to do any of this, then okay, we'll just continue the status quo. I don't think that's what the public wants, but I don't understand. These are not hard choices. Now, the regulation part, we have 2 issues here. The land use issue, that's one issue. Where do we want to allow short-term rentals in the future, independent of what the regulations are? And what's the process by which that happens? I thought when we had a discussion, can't remember when it was now, I think it might have even been June, early June, that we weren't going to have any new short-term rentals except where there was an overlay district. I think that's where there was the consensus of. The consensus at that time is we thought that number was 75%. There's some discussion that maybe it should be less than that. Certainly we can discuss that tonight. That's the land use question. And that helps us deal with where to draw the line in the queue, Mr. Mayor, as to what additional short-term rental applications we need to consider under the transition rules. I think there's a lot of debate about once you have a short-term rental, what the regulations are. And I would agree wholeheartedly that that's something that needs work. Because one, we can't enforce the ones we have today. It's unclear that the new stuff will even solve the problem that we have. But relative to establishing the process, that what it takes to petition to be considered for an overlay district, and establishing the fact that absent an overlay district, new additional short-term rentals can't be created, is a land use question we can resolve tonight without having to defer. I would agree that the regulations are a much more troubling issue and do deserve more concern, but I'm concerned about not setting the policy that stops the application process that we have to actively consider for new short-term rentals, and that is only accomplished by dealing with the land use question distinct from regulations.
Okay, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification on what Mr. Moss was saying. So then, are you saying that we should defer the regulation sections on here, which I believe are D and E? Or wait, are they D and E or D? I've got to look through this again.
Can I respond?
Yeah, please.
Well, with one exception, because in E, I believe in E, if my memory serves me correct, in that section 21, that the lines 40, are in E, deal with the what it takes to establish and petition an overlay district, and makes also as part of the decision that you can't have a new short-term rental unless it's in an overlay district. But that is language that's spread across several of these, if I remember correctly.
So, yeah, so if you go on the second page of this, it says D is add additional safety regulations for all STRs, and then E is rules and regulations for STRs with an overlays, and then F is transition rules. So are you talking, so
Lines 54,
under D?
under one that says, an ordinance to add Article 23 consisting of sections 2300 through 2303, and it talks about whereas,
Got it.
right?
Section
If you look at
2301.
lines 54 through 64, deal with when you want to petition for a short-term rental overlay district, this is how you do it. That's a land use question. That's not regulatory. That's just setting the threshold. And then there's another place, and I hope the city attorney can help me to where to find it, where it talks about you can't, to have a short-term rental going forward, you have to have an overlay district.
So are you trying to divide this then? Can you
Yeah,
be-
because I think.
Is this
there-
divisible?
Yeah, I think it is, only because these other things deal with how you regulate an STR once you have one. And I'm trying to say that the distinction of when you can have one is a land use question. And I think it's something that you can adopt a motion to say you can only have a short-term rental where there's an overlay district. And to have an overlay district, then you would put in lines 59 through, 54 through 64.
Also, number C, if you look at C, it's all of the zoning districts inside of the zoning ordinance. And that's where you would look to understand that they are not allowed in any zoning district in the
So-
city.
C, we need to act on C.
So if we act on C, but if we added to C lines 54 through 64 of E, that would accomplish the person of both establishing the thing, but also providing the provision while they are established. If you take C,
Yes, I understand, 2300,
Mr. Moss,
2300 probably needs to stay as a unit because it's about short-term rentals. But did you want to place 2301 in C?
correct. That's what I would want to put that in C. So you're
I
both,
think it'd be better to have that as a separate motion.
well, it gives a separate motion too, but we could just adopt it, just those terms, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Rouse, and then Ms. Henley.
I have a comment, but Mr. DeHaan, did you want to state something?
I was just going to provide another option. I think this was going along the lines that Ms. Henley was saying. You can take the action separately and adopt section 2300 if you choose to with that section, and then we can strike everything else below it, and it would still hold that provision that says you need to, in order to create a short-term rental overlay district, you have to have a percentage.
Okay.
That would maintain it, so you wouldn't have to move it elsewhere.
Okay.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor. So my comments is really geared toward this legislation as a whole. I would support your deferment because taking stuff out of this section, adding it over here, adding lines, that's really, really confusing. And so I would support your deferral as well. But my comments in general about this piece of legislation is that it will severely affect many responsible STR owners throughout the city, not just in proposed overlay districts. Coupled with the fact, again, that this overlay district discussion, basically, it places more opportunity in the oceanfront area of our city, which further exacerbates the perception that preferential treatment is preferred at the oceanfront. Now, I know that isn't the case, and not try to make that case to our constituents, but it's rather hard when this piece of legislation is before us. The concern is equity throughout the city. We have an STR ordinance already on the books, and then instead of working on stern enforcement and making sure we have stringent regulations, we're basically saying we're going to get rid of that and look at overlay districts. And I just don't, again, I don't think that is the way to go. I still have not seen any data that's illustrating the specific STR problems throughout the city, whether or not how many, 311 calls, how many police calls. I have not seen any of those things. And as a matter of fact, the problems that we have heard associated with STRs are from the illegal ones, not from the responsible STR owners. So also, I'm fully aware of those concerns, and those concerns of our neighborhoods who want to protect the character of their neighborhood, which is coupled with strong regulation and stringent regulation, but also the enforcement throughout the city. On a really quick note, Mr. Mayor, and just a quick side note, but it's really on topic. I want to welcome home the 4 Super Hornet squadrons returning to NAS Oceana today. They're returning with over 800 sailors from USD Dwight Eisenhower's been on a 6-month deployment. So they're returning here home to Virginia Beach. Their family members were aware when they're coming home. Where are they going to stay? They don't want to be at a busy oceanfront. They want to be throughout the city in STRs. It has a distinct place within our city. And so with that note, Mr. Mayor and fellow council, I would say that not only providing a more equitable way to provide STRs to our city, but it places our city on a track to embrace a new industry, number one. It makes us appear as though we're being progressive. But also I think it adds and contributes to our growing population. And also I think it helps support our ever-growing economy. I think our motto has been open for business, and I think it's something that we're truly open for business. We have to really capture and really embrace the new industry, followed with strong regulation and enforcement, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Wood and then Mr. Moss.
So I wanted to kind of go back to where we are in terms of what's been approved or denied and what's pending. So last week, we denied A and B.
Correct.
So A and B, no short-term rental overlay districts have been created,
That's correct.
and no properties have been rezoned to short-term rental overlay district. So tonight, what we have before us is C, which, I mean, I'm reading this out loud even though we know what it is because I think it gives me clarity and gives everybody else clarity here. So C, amend the zoning land use tables. So if approved as currently written, short-term rentals will only be permitted within the Sandbridge Special Service District or within STR rental overlay districts. Since there are no parcels zoned with STR overlay districts, approving this ordinance with no changes would mean that all new STRs will be in the Sandbridge Special Service District. So that's what C does. D is additional safety regulations, which would amend 241.2, require 4 square foot sign. Grandfather STRs would lose their grandfather status after 2 years. All CUPs granted areas where they are no longer permitted would be considered grandfathered and would not expire in 5 years. Would require on-site inspections. Add that any violation of state or federal law could be grounds for revocation. Require structural inspections and require that during yearly zoning permit process, a ledger noting number of rentals, et cetera. So that's D. And then E would be creating the rules for all STRs located within any overlay districts. Since there are no overlay districts, there would not be any regulations created. F would be transition rules for the review of short-term rental conditional use permit applications that are in the pipeline. It says after October 20th, 2020. So I just wanted to make sure that we were aware of what has occurred and what we're voting on now. I heard, and I just want to make sure I heard people advocating for a deferral. I didn't hear a motion, so I don't think there's a motion yet on that. And I know, John, you were talking about bifurcating one of these questions for a motion as well. So I'm just trying to figure out where we are on all this.
Go ahead, John. Okay, Rosemary then, John.
One of the things that I've been really concerned about, especially when you're talking about banning and not having them, is so many more are gonna go underground, just kind of like the days of Prohibition when we banned, when alcohol was banned. People still drank, but then they did it illegally and created a lot of crime. So what are we gonna do about the illegal STRs? What can we do about STRs that are illegal?
So the enforcement regulations that we have are based out of the zoning. So we have, because it is a land use violation, we have to give them 10-day notice and we can fine them. And then after so many certain fines, we can then make it a criminal summons to court. But there is no immediate, based on the current rules that we have in place and also what we're allowed to do with zoning enforcement, we don't have a way to immediately stop a short-term rental.
And so would you tell the public what the fines are?
So it's $200 for each fine, and then I believe after the second fine, it can go up to $500 for the occurrence. So
Maybe we should consider making the fines tougher, so it would be discouraging people to
I don't think.
not have to pay that. Is that, we can't?
I don't think we can.
no, the fines are defined in the state code. For a zoning violation, if with civil penalties, it's limited to the $200 and $500 with a maximum.
Okay, we're maxed out.
Okay, Mr. Moss, Ms. Henley, and then Mr. Tower.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that I'll follow with some discussion and look for a second for the adoption of item C.
Adoption?
Well, we can a motion to approve, right? That's what's this on our agenda for a vote. That's the first one you talked about, which sets the regulations, says you have to have an overlay district for a short-term rental, but doesn't go into all that. That's what Mr. Wood just explained.
Yeah.
And that can be adopted as it's written. We just don't have any overlay districts to which it would apply. So I'm moving for its adoption. It's been well discussed, well commented on, and it's an enabling piece, and then I'll talk about, but I have a discussion. I couldn't take, from my honorable colleague, and I understand, but I'm not an advocate for the Airbnb industry. That's not my job here. My job is to be an advocate for neighborhoods, for the status quo, because someone's asking for the status quo to be changed. And the burden of proof isn't on the residents who have zoning, which says rentals for less than 30 days are not a permitted use in residential zonings in our community. So they have a property right vested. An industry is asking us, and be progressive, to upzone property that changes the character of the neighborhood that other people have bought into. And so we're changing their property rights in a negative way. Unless we have this overlay process where the community decides whether they want to be progressive or not, or whether they want to embrace a new technology or not. But when they moved into their home and bought their home and looked at their closing documents, looked at the zoning that implied, short-term rentals wasn't an entitled use of that property owner. They shouldn't have had an expectation that they would be able to do that. Now, our ability to enforce that's a question which we need to address. But what is our obligation? To preserve and advocate for the property rights that people have and protect those. That's what I think people expect us to do. And I think my emails have overwhelmingly been, and I can't express to other people, that they don't want their neighborhood incrementally turned into hotel districts, just because they're close proximity. Now, the Navy has their own policy for taking care and providing housing. They got Navy lodges, they got lots of stuff. And we've been having bigger Navy presence than we have today before we ever had short-term rentals. And clearly we were able to accommodate. The squadrons were bigger, more ships were here, more people were here, the population was denser. So those are kind of like nice things to say, but they empirically have no application. But what does have application is what do we want to have happen to our neighborhoods in Chicks Beach? Should the R10 zoning out there that's in those single-family neighborhoods now just be an R10 hotel district because it's convenient to the Bay and people can make more money if they buy those people out and then change the neighborhood? Well, if that's what we want, then that's what we're going to encourage because now you're just serving the dollar versus building a community. And I think people ought to have a right to decide if they want to transform their community. And I think people understand that basic premise. I could wholeheartedly agree with Mrs. Wilson's our ability to enforce even at the $200. We have not proven ourselves to be very competent and able to do that. Maybe it's lack of will, lack of resources, but clearly it would greatly improve if we could get our Commissioner of Revenue or the two candidates to agree that they would support our legislative change to make their databases accessible to the city. And so now the Commissioner of Revenue shares in why, because if he's not going to advocate with us, that means he's against us, then he's not advocating for helping us preserve neighborhoods in the city. And this is a great election year, so it's a great time to bring that up. So that people can be accountable on the stump. Are you with the city council's ability to get easy access to information? Because if you are operating illegally and you're not registered with the Commissioner of Revenue, now you have tax fraud and other kind of implications that carry much more serious criminal enforcement than just not registering with the city. So I think we have the means to do enforcement. We just have to change the rules of the game to adopt to the technology and a new industry practice. But that doesn't mean because it's difficult to enforce or because there is a new industry that's highly profitable that our existing integrity of our neighborhood should pay the expense for someone else's profit and fundamentally change the character of their neighborhood. And I think that's what we heard when people spoke here. You know, and I think our transition rules, which I don't necessarily always agree with, Mr. Mayor, but I understand why it makes sense that all the people that are out there that have their grandfather and where they're at, we've made that commitment. We shouldn't reverse that either. You know, but we can say we don't have to have more dandelions in the garden. You know, we don't have to create a bigger problem. And then I do think I don't care if the short-term rentals operate good or bad, you know, because land use isn't about behavior. That's what the regulations are about. But the land use is about the fundamental character that we want to advance for our community. And does industry drive that, or do our neighborhoods drive that? And I think the message is neighborhoods do. Now when you get to the regulation piece, which are these other items that are here, then we got to look at what really can government do and do well. So what part of that does industry do well? I don't think we need to go see they have a fire extinguisher and a fire alarm and all that kind of stuff. I think we can take the same pictures the insurance companies take. They sign an affidavit, and if they don't have those things, they're not working. I'm sure the liability lawyers will love that when they have a problem because they'll go to court and they'll end up owning the short-term rental. So I do think there are some financial liabilities that motivate people to act responsibly because they have a financial liability. And then you got to look at other issues about parking. That is important. We can deal with parking or deck inspections. Those are important. But there's some other things we had. I don't see it, especially if we can get access, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner of Revenue's information. And that is critical. No matter how we do short-term rental, the state's got to change the law that makes that information available to us so that everybody who's playing in short-term rentals, because I'm sure if I had one, I wouldn't want somebody illegally operating and not playing by the rules because they got a price advantage. So I do stand by my motion for the adoption of item C.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask Mr. Moss a question?
Okay, yeah, Mr. Moss, a question.
Mr. Moss?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moss, I agree with you on item C. I also would like to include in the motion item E.
That takes out the north end and ocean front portions and has the provision of how to establish a short-term rental. I mean, an overlay district.
I could accept that friendly amendment. Okay. If you're seconding that, I could accept that.
Second your motion, if you will.
Amended to adoption of item C and E.
Item C and E.
Okay, Mr. Tower.
I was.
Can I absorb the item E? What's the effect of the adding item E? Yeah, so does K.
I think you'll want the no from the
Oh.
attorney.
Yeah,
Overlay.
you've got E in there. Do you want all of E, or do you only want portions of E?
You have to take out the references to the overlay districts, which we did not adopt.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would do that and leave in the regulations so that people would know if they were going to do an overlay, that would be the regulations. Yes, ma'am, I have a version that's done that, yes.
All right.
Oh, I understood that was Mr. Jones's second, and I adopted it.
Okay, Ms. Henley. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, Mr. Tower first.
Okay, I'm sorry, that was a detour. My principal comment is I want to make clear where I am on the whole thing here. I represent the Beach District. I also happen to live in the North End, but that's neither here nor there. The Beach District, I believe, and the city as a whole, I believe, would benefit from acknowledging whatever all of these citizens say when they come to us and say, please don't add to the STR burdens in our neighborhoods. It's okay, if you're going to have them in the hotel district. Well, that's exactly what I have tried to do, and I was very disappointed, and I take responsibility for my lack of parliamentary acumen, perhaps, in not getting there, that we had to vote on the North End and the overlay for the OR, the Oceanfront Resort Area, in a single motion. I think those two issues are very, very different, and I believe that a majority of council would support having an overlay for the Oceanfront Resort District, a hotel district in which no one can say, if they paid attention to their zoning when they bought it, that, gee, I didn't know that you could have short-term rentals here, when in fact you could have hotels there with daily turnover. So I'm hoping that council will in fact find a way to reconsider the OR zone. It answers some of our issues about needing to be realistic about recognizing that there is a legitimate demand by the type of people that we want to come to Virginia Beach that now insist on STRs wherever they go. And it's just a recognition of a reality. And to have sufficient supply for those in the resort area, which is where most of people coming, not all, certainly the people that have made the point that it would be great to have them in the sports center or hospitals, those. I'm not arguing with you about that, but I'm trying to be realistic about where people on council are, what we can get done. And I am hopeful that we can take another look at the OR district, because I don't think saying that we can't have any more there is in our best interest. I think
Mr. Jones, and then Ms. Wilson, and then Mr. Ward.
I've had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Forever. I won't
Okay.
forget it.
Okay. Barbara, please go. I didn't see it through Mr. Jones. Please go ahead.
It's been up the whole time. Okay. I think that the C, everybody needs to really know what each one of these does do, is simply saying to all of our zoning categories where overlay districts would be allowed. It doesn't establish any, but it says that if it were an overlay district, what it would be, a conditional use, except that this ordinance that we have in here says the resort tourist district, it would be a primary use.
Okay.
And I think that should have been a conditional.
It should have been, yes,
I
ma'am.
think that's an error. So that was my caveat in saying that I thought we should approve C. That is an error, right? It's
Yes,
supposed
ma'am,
to
that
be a
is
C.
a typo.
Okay. Now, what this simply does, and this addresses what Mr. Rouse was saying, that we're not saying that overlay districts could only be at the oceanfront. They can be in any of these zoning categories, provided that, and that's what Section E does, it says, how would you establish an overlay district? It would be by a petition of 75% or whatever percent, but our ordinance here says 75% of the property owners. And so you could have an overlay district in any of these zoning categories, all over the city, not just the north end, not just the oceanfront. You could have it in any of these zoning categories, provided that 75% of the people in the neighborhood petition the council to allow it. And that's what this does. It doesn't establish any overlay districts, but it says this is how you could establish an overlay district. And if you had an overlay district, you would be able to do short-term rentals with a conditional use permit. And so that's what they would allow. And so I think this addresses what Mr. Rouse was saying. We're not saying that overlay districts and short-term rentals can only be in one part of the city. You can be it in any of these, provided the neighborhood asks for it. And so that's all this does. Is that what your understanding is? Because I think that's the thing, that we've got so many misunderstandings, but that's what this does. I think the other things that we're not addressing yet gets to the question of what is grandfathered. And I think our intent is that existing STRs that are properly registered and properly permitted are grandfathered, and you continue. We're not taking them away unless you have not paid the taxes and have not taken the steps necessary to get the paperwork done, the permitting. But if you have done those things and you have been paying your taxes since that date in 2018 that we established, then you would be grandfathered and able to continue. Or if you have gotten the conditional use permit during this process, at the end of the 5 years or whatever, you would still be able to be administratively continued, provided there have been no problems. And I think that's the misunderstanding, that we do have a path in here for the existing short-term rentals who are doing what you're supposed to do and have gotten your permit and you've gotten your registration and you're paying your taxes, then you do continue. We're not taking that away. And it just establishes the rules for how you operate. So I think that this has to be a several-step process, and we just have to do each step along the way to do it. And I think that's what we're trying to do here with what action we took last week to say, no, we're not establishing an overlay district in the north end. No, we're not establishing one of the OR this time. But this is how you could establish it there and also any other locality in the city, provided you do this process of petitioning. And so and then we lay out the regulations in the parts that we're not talking about. So that's what I'm seeing, and I just want to be clear that that's what we're doing, because that's the way I understand it.
That's my understanding.
Okay,
Okay.
Mr. Jones, Ms. Wilson, and then Mr. Wood, and then Mr. Tower again.
Number one, let me say that that's exactly my understanding, what Mrs. Henley has stated. But I would like to respond to Mr. Tower, because I think the problem I have with doing the OR district right now as an overlay district is that, quite frankly, the majority of people who have contacted me in the OR district, most of them live in fact, all of them that have contacted me, live in single-family homes out there in the district, and they're opposed to it. And so they're opposed to an overlay district. Now, I'm willing, if once we do these other things and whether it's 75% or whatever the percentage is, if that percentage of people, the property owners in the OR district come to us and say they want an overlay, I'm willing to support that, but I haven't seen that. I have not seen that kind of support for it from the emails and the telephone calls that I have received, and I've received a lot of them.
May I?
Okay. Rosemary, if you don't mind, if you can respond to Lois, and then I'll get you.
And so that's where I am. I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for it, but I'm not willing to vote for it till I see the proper percentage of people who are willing, who want it, in other words.
Well, Ms. Wilson lives in the district, so I'm looking forward to her comments, but I'd just like to say, actually, I think that I would agree with you. The majority of the people who've contacted me that live in the OR, that's one person has objected to it, sort of, not fully, not with any, not robustly. And I have not, I represent the Beach District. To the best of my knowledge, I've not had a single person who lives in the OR object to this. So I'm
All
just
due
saying.
respect. if
Okay,
I may-
with all due respect, to
all
you,
due
Ms.
respect,
Jones.
Now,
I understand
think
your
what-
position.
Okay, one at a time, folks.
I think the people who object realize that you are very much inclined not to agree with them, and so they have stopped trying to contact you.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I defer to
Okay,
Ms. Wilson.
Ms. Wilson.
I have something that I want to say about all this, but I would like to ask Bobby a question. In the OR district, can you tell us how many single-family homes are actually in the OR district? I know there's a lot of condominiums there, and I mean, I'm the only person who actually lives in the OR district, and I know this district extraordinarily well. And most of the residences there are condominiums. And I think there's a small little sliver of single-family houses, but I don't think it's very many. Do we have any idea what that number is?
Unfortunately, I do not. I can see if I can try to get that information for you.
So what I would like to say is, I know the residences there with the condominiums. And these are people who, a lot of them are second homes. They live all over the country, all over the world. There's no organization there. It's not like the Civic League in the North End where they're organized. These are scattered buildings within the hotel commercial district, a district that's meant for lodging, a district that's meant for tourists to come and stay in that district. So I know of at least 400 units, 400 in this small area of condominiums that don't allow short-term rentals in their buildings at all. So none of these people would vote for having short-term rentals because it doesn't affect them. I mean, if you send out a card asking to vote, they'd probably just throw it in the trash can. You're not going to get people to vote for it. There are about 200 units that I am aware of that will allow short-term rentals. About 200, that's it. Now, these people would probably vote for it. But there's no way you're going to get 67 or 75% of the people in the hotel lodging district where it's meant for tourism. It's meant for visitors to come. It's meant for families to come. And I would think we would send a terrible message that could be said, we don't want families to come to our tourism district. So if you apply this percentage, you might as well just set it for failure because it's not going to pass. There's no leadership to push it through, and most of the people really are not going to care, just maybe a small fraction. And I've mentioned at least 600 condos, and I know that there's a very small sliver of homes, but not very many. So it's pretty much already regulated itself. If you think about how many short-term rentals from the OR district have actually come before us. Very few, and I think just about every one we approved because it's in a commercial district. There were some in the Oceans too, and then there's that 901, the little place on Pacific Avenue. We've had a few there, and we were concerned that they had to rent a parking spot in Ninth Street Garage. But there's been very, very few that have come before us. So this is a problem that doesn't exist. There's really not a problem there. And I just think you're putting in restrictions that's just gonna essentially ban them in this district that's meant for lodging. So whenever you find out how many homes compared to condos, it'd be really nice to know. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Rouse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I just got a question. If we lack enforcement on the current ordinance as it states already, then why are we implementing new guidelines?
Can I answer that?
Okay, Mr. Moss, Mr. Woods up, yeah.
All right, well, I kind of wanted to go back to the motion because we kind of went a little far afield talking about stuff that was rejected last week, and if perhaps that is something will be addressed under new business or old business, or whatever. I kind of wanted to go back to the motion for C and E, and I was curious why D is left out. And Mr. Jones asked to add E, but not D, and D has the safety requirements that I think are pretty important. And I recognize that people say, well, I think there's certain ways that can be done, but I think we should have the requirements, so.
I don't have any problem with that myself.
Okay, could we go Ms. Henley and then Mr. Moss?
I would just say it's a little confusing because D still carries the original regulations, which allow 3 individuals per bedroom, allows the events, special events, allows 2 per week. And I'm not sure why, whereas E seems to be more in line with what we have been, or what the council has been approving since you saw the light, and have changed some of those things. So I do think that we need to be clear on just what the regulations are. And I think E seems to have those regulations more in line with what has been being approved. I question why D is still carrying the ones that have been
John, can
dropped.
Jim respond real quick?
Yeah, I was just going to answer his question,
Okay.
but I didn't include it. in my motion.
So then if we skip past D for a second, can we add F?
We can come back to that at some point. I mean, I didn't mean that we wouldn't act on it at all, but I
Right.
think it would
But I
go
mean,
with C, saying that if there's an overlay district, these new ones are the ones that would be the regulations for the new overlay districts. I guess D is acknowledging that we've got one overlay district that was created that still use these or something, I'm not sure.
So would you add F then?
I'm willing to, yeah.
Is that okay with you, John?
Can I just give you a chance to make sure that what I'm saying yes to, I've read frequently. It's like, did you read before you signed it? So let me refresh my memory. But while I better read it first, and then I thought.
I mean, the transition rules?
Yeah.
The transition rules, but I guess we would need to take some of these, because it references, I'm looking at the right one, this is F?
F is transition rules.
Yes, I mean, but also it mentions, whereas has referred to the planning commission, all these overlay districts, so that would have to be,
Well, we did refer them to the planning commission, that's just a statement.
I know, but rental use only in the areas managed by and short-term rental overlays. So this would not apply to the grandfathered and would not apply to that correct? Is that your understanding of this? F would only apply to the newly created overlay districts? Okay, I'm good with that. Because I think that's what I was trying to wrap up. I didn't really want to put regulations in there, but Mrs. Henley made a convincing case, and since we haven't established any, I'm fine with that. Yes, obviously there's an issue.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that you understood what the transition rules really are. What they are is anything that's in the pipeline.
Yes.
Once you pass everything, if they don't meet those regulations, which none of them will, because you can't have any more, they will all be told, thank you very much, and they will be told they can't go to council.
Yeah, I do understand that.
Okay.
I thought it would be more controversial than apparently it is.
Me too.
But if it's not, I'm very amenable with it. But yes, I did understand. I was just making sure.
So would,
Okay, Mr. Wood and then Mr. Rouse.
would they receive their money back for their,
That's a policy decision for you and planning. That's,
I heard the city manager say yes.
I do,
Okay,
yeah.
anybody else? We have a motion and a second on the table, but we also had a preliminary conversation about deferring until September. And I would like to hear about that.
Well, we've got C, E, and
that a
F
motion
as a
Eh,
motion.
That's a motion. No, nobody's made a
I was just
substitute
being
motion
clear.
to that effect.
For what? C,
No, to defer everything and take no
We're
action.
talking about,
Yeah,
the
and then we may-
possibility of
C, E, and F
deferring.
are the motion currently?
right.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And is there any discussion on Ms. Wooten?
I just wanted to second your motion to defer.
Oh, I can't make a motion.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion to defer to September.
Okay? Okay, we have a motion and a second as a substitute. Okay? Any discussion on that?
I'd just soon vote and find out where we are.
Okay? Okay, the motion is to defer all these items until September.
Are we doing a date certain in September?
We can go first,
How about a
meeting.
year certain?
So September
first formal
September the
meeting.
7th?
Yeah.
Just
They're gonna defer.
to be,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, to be clear, this is to approve the substitute motion.
To defer to September 13th.
Is that correct? I'm just
That's-
trying to make sure, because there was already a motion on the floor, so I'm just trying to.
Yeah,
The
this is a
substitute is a
substitute.
replacement of it. If it passes, then it has to be voted on again to adopt.
Yes, sir, I just want to make sure that we understand. Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
Is this for? Never mind.
This is a substitute motion to defer.
And I assume that means all items.
All items.
Thank you. Go close
I knew
that.
that's what she's looking for.
By a vote of 4 to 5,
Can-
that motion has,
Did not-
I'm sorry, can I redo my vote? I'm
Oh,
sorry,
wait a minute.
I messed
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
I apologize.
okay, so I can't reopen the vote. You'll just have to make a correction from the floor there.
Okay, my vote is yes for that motion.
So,
Okay, the motion has
4
been
to
passed.
4.
hold on now.
It's 4 to 4, it doesn't pass.
4 to
No, it
4.
doesn't.
Doesn't pass.
Okay.
So we vote on the.
Fail.
Okay,
Wait, hold
so
on,
now
wait, no, I'm
the,
sorry. So, it wasn't, it was, so it'd be 5 to 4.
We
Yeah.
only
We don't have 9 people.
Yeah, it's not people here, it's not.
So with Ms. Wooten changing her vote, because she has a nay vote here, and you're saying you would like to have a yes vote.
Yeah. So it'd be fine.
I can't,
Can't
I've
do
already
that.
closed it. So it would be, it's 5 to 4 then, with the mayor, Mr. Rouse, Mr. Tower, Ms. Wilson, and Ms. Wooten voting yes. Ms. Henley, Mr. Jones, Mr. Moss, and Mr. Wood voting no.
okay,
Is that,
okay, so the motion has passed to defer this till September.
no, that now comes the main motion.
Okay, now
we
the
can
main
have
motion.
discussion.
Okay, any discussion on the main motion?
Yes. I was inclined to bring something up under old business to be reconsidered, but in light of this vote, I will not, and I will not vote for it either.
Okay,
John, we don't have the votes?
What is the
I'm,
question?
I'm just letting people know that this is just an irresponsible vote, and I refuse to compound it by bringing up something for reconsideration. My patience has been taxed.
What is the motion we're voting?
okay, the motion we're voting on now
Is
is to defer.
Is to defer to.
So we voted on deferral.
C, E, and F.
No, that's just.
Oh, on CD,
You
yeah.
have to approve it as a motion.
That was to make it the main motion.
Okay, okay, now we're voting again to make it the main motion.
No.
No,
To approve it.
Motion to approve the deferral.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. one of these long things here.
So the motion is to defer till September the 7th.
Yes.
Everybody's vote is correct. Okay, close it. The motion failed 4-5.
Now let's vote on the motion that Mr. Moss and I made.
Somebody changed their mind.
I've changed my vote.
Now we vote on the motion. John.
Okay, now we vote on the original motion? No, okay.
Go ahead, Rod. Okay.
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
We have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion
Did we
on
have
the
a
floor.
motion on the floor?
We have a motion.
We have a motion and a
It
second.
is?
Yeah.
If not, we vote.
Because we're not deferring it, correct?
Can I just get clarification, though? So the motion on the floor is for 2C, E, and F, not D, correct? And that is to approve.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Approving C.
Okay, and we need to add E has typos, we will correct.
But for point of clarification, didn't you guys move around a bunch of stuff? I don't know what, you
No, in the end, we didn't move
No?
anything.
didn't, everything's the same?
Yeah, the A, B, C, D, E, and F are the same
Okay.
as always.
D's not a part of this.
D is not a part of
D
it.
is not a part of this.
C, E, and F.
Changes at the end, none.
D is still floating around out there.
It don't matter, I'm not supporting.
I'm a vote on it. It don't matter.
So the vote, well, give us a second, please. Can you open the vote, Terry?
I was a second.
Yes, but we just need to open the vote. And this is to approve C, E, and F. Can you close that? By a vote of 5-4, those ordinances have passed.
Okay, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, we're getting there, we're moving along here. Okay, is there any other item?
What are we gonna do about D?
What are we gonna do about D?
Does need deferral, I think.
We deferred.
Is there a motion to defer D?
So moved to September.
Second.
8th and-
Okay? Okay,
I like to make a
Seven?
substitute motion, just so I can mess with everybody. No. How about September 13th? Wasn't that
September 7th.
it was the 13th, I know 7, but don't we have
The
13 on there?
That's the workshop.
That would be September 14th, too.
Yes.
September 7th is the.
Yeah, we got,
Okay, that's fine, all right.
okay?
You just,
I just wanted to mess with you guys.
Can you open it?
Gee, thanks.
Give us a second. Okay, it's open. Close that. By a vote of 9-0, D has been deferred to September 7th.
Unanimous, yippee. Okay,
full business.
okay, now we're doing appointment.
I
Okay.
have an item of
Yes, sir.
of old business. Just to lead in, I'm going to ask for reconsideration of the planning item 21A and B that we denied last week. I think it was last week. Yes, last week, and here's my reasoning, because I think the public needs to know. You may recall all through this process, I have been in favor of supporting short-term rentals in the OR district because hotels are a use by right. And a short-term rental is just a hotel by another name, which is why it's such an interest in all these neighborhoods. And it didn't make sense when people bought their property, they also knew that a hotel could be in their area. They also knew that it could be built in their place. It's a by right use. So short-term rentals are by right use in the OR district. It's just that you have to build a hotel, but in effect, in all intents and purposes, a home becomes a hotel with a short-term rental, just a smaller scale. And so, unfortunately, when we try to get all those votes, it just got caught up, I think, in that piece, and I don't think that that distinction got enough attention, and so it was an all-or-nothing vote, and I was wanting to make sure that we didn't have overlay districts for the North Beach, but when something's a by right, you sometimes wonder why we even had to have an overlay district to start with, but we do, and so I would like to have that, if I can get a second that passes, as a reconsideration item to be reconsidered at our August, I think it's August 4th.
We can't get it.
Can't get advertised in time.
Make a suggestion, could we do it the same time as this other one?
If that's amenable to the district council member, it is?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't
We
want
want
to.
STRs to get
Yeah,
there.
okay. Then make that, could I make a date specific? September 7th, it would be item 21A and B that were denied. That was one, to approve the overlay was A, and B was to then modify the zoning maps was B, to just refresh people's memory.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Could I make-
Okay.
Can I ask a procedural
This
question?
also opens the door.
So a member of the prevailing side made the motion.
Yes,
Does the second have to be a member of the prevailing side?
Does not.
Okay, but Ms. Wilson made it, second?
I did.
Okay, Mr. Tower, okay, so,
Ms. Henley?
okay, Ms. Henley?
This also, though, includes the overlay for the north end, because that was a part of the vote. So this is also reopening the consideration of the north end.
It carries with that risk exposure. I have chatted with the people that, I didn't go into this lightly, and I think that and I would defer to that council member from that district, but I don't anticipate that that's actually happening. I think that we know what we're going to do, and that's not going to happen.
From what I've seen over the last 5 years, anything could happen.
Well, that's true, but I'd like to
Just-
think that
just
people
the
that made a
last 5
personal commitment to me would honor it, but,
Mostly.
and I take them at their
That
word.
happened too.
Okay, Mr. Wood, then, Mr. Rouse.
Yeah, so I have no intention of bringing the north end back other than through the overlay process of 75%, so
A
you're
lot
you're
can
good on that.
happen in 2
Well, I
years.
understand a lot can happen, and a lot always does happen, and nothing.
Sleep good.
And STRs are just the 6-year gift that keeps on giving, and that's why I was really hoping that we could put them all together on one date in September and get it done, but, you know, but we've got a second, and that's great, so I'll
We're making
support you.
progress.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Mr. Rouse, a little levity from you? Yeah.
No, honestly, I'm just a real concern that Councilman Jones brought up earlier about the OR district. And quite honestly, I'm not necessarily disagreeable to making that overlay, but the fact remains, if there isn't 75% support to be an overlay district, then why impose that?
Okay. All right, Mr. Tower.
I would just make a public statement that I have no, my name's on the resolution as well, with Mr. Wood, but I have deferred to him pretty much throughout this process. I've got my own views about the north end, and I'm happy to keep that out. I have no intention, I will not take any action to reopen the north end decision. I agree with it. I'm fine with it. I'm doing this only because technically it is the only way to reconsider the OR as a separate matter, separate and apart from any other overlay, including the north end.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. We do a vote on this?
Let's make sure we know what the motion is.
The motion is,
Reconsider.
To reconsider the vote of denial on items 21A and B that were voted on July the 6th, and to have that on the agenda for reconsideration on September the 7th.
okay?
For the OR district.
No, it'll be
It's the vote, it's that vote that we made as it was made.
Yeah. So anybody from the prevailing side can bring it back. if they
I
want.
understand that,
Okay.
but, okay, just to be point of clarification, there's a, I guess, a point of, I guess, agreement that the north end is obviously taken out of that, but for technicalities, it has to be included in.
Correct.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I would intend to make a motion, assuming that passed, and we did reconsider it, to immediately bifurcate the issues and consider only the OR district and have a vote on that.
Yeah, that's something we can do procedurally.
I don't think I can make that motion tonight, but that's my intention, to make it when it's reconsidered.
Okay, Mr. Wood.
But before we vote, if I can ask a procedural question of the attorneys. Since this was tabled, are we not still within the same action? So can we just not do it all tonight?
No, the reconsideration has to be advertised. It's considered a separate action. So it has to be advertised, and that will take us into August.
Well, I get that, but what I'm saying is, so last week, while we were still within this vote, Mr. Tower made a motion for reconsideration, which was allowed right then on the spot. So my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong procedurally, but my understanding is tabling means we've still got the same, everything before us. So is
You
that's
do, but what, not the A and B.
No.
A and B were not tabled.
They were denied.
They were denied, so they
But
weren't part of
but
the
the overall, okay, that's fine.
So that's why we need to defer it.
Okay, the vote's open, folks.
Go ahead and close it. By a vote of 6-3, these items will be reconsidered on September the 7th. The motion has passed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor, appointments.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I nominate the following individuals to the Bayfront Advisory Commission: Joseph Bovee; to the Bikeways and Trails Advisory Committee: Hugh Tierney, James Roberts, and Rachel Kane; to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area Board: James McCune; to the Clean Community Commission: Carla Gregory, Diana McDowell; to the Community Organization Grant COG Review and Allocation Committee: Robin Foreman Wheeler, Cheryl McCleskey, and Rosemary Wilson; to the Green Ribbon Committee: Harold Jones, representing Environmental Community; Jordan Lewis and Park Schmidt, representing high school students; to the Health Services Advisory Board: Erica Tremonello; to the Human Rights Commission: Heidi Daniels; to the Investigation Review Panel: Robert Beasley and William Hurst; to the Oceana Land Use Conformity Committee: Rosemary Wilson; to the Parks and Recreation Commission: Patricia Dolan, Joseph Monaco, Hugh Tierney; to the Public Library Board: Josie Booney; to the Transition Area ITA Citizens Advisory Committee: Melissa Horal and Thomas Luckman; and to the Wetlands Board: Josh Schulman.
Okay, we have a motion. Okay, are we open for the vote?
Mr. Rouse? By a vote of 9-0, you have appointed those nominated by Vice Mayor Wood. Mr. Moss, did you want to make a verbal nay vote on one of them?
Oh, yes, you
Oh,
do.
what? No, I
There's
did.
two of them, economic
Actually,
development.
I didn't call them.
I didn't, I
I'm
was,
sorry.
Skipped over
I
them.
thought I heard their names, but I thought
Yep,
maybe
they
I
were at the
missed it.
top here. Mr. Mayor, I nominate to the Development Authority David Byrne and Lisa Murphy.
Okay, so we'll do a separate vote for those.
Okay.
Go ahead and open it. Just 1 second. This is just for the Development Authority. By a vote of 8-1, you have appointed those read by.
My reason for voting no, that board needs a lot more diversity, and it doesn't have it.
Okay, we had unfinished business before. Do we have any new business? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all. What? Before
Thank you.